Okay, well I'm going to start by reinstalling the intake manifold on this side. It's essentially I'm reversing the order I took it apart. I'm going to remove the masking tape on that bank that was keeping my cylinders from having any debris fall into them. Carefully rest my manifold gasket in place. Now this is going to get nudged and bumped around as I fit it in, so I know that already because it has to index with the holes in the manifold, but it'll fall off if you try and put it on to the manifold as you're trying to lower it in. So that's fairly centered. I have to be careful now not to get any debris in. I'm going to move the coolant pipe off just a little bit to the side, and this PVC pipe goes underneath the manifold tubes, so it just has to sit there. And this is my time to remind you that you have to remember to hook up the rear vacuum pipe. So I have the pipe, you can't see it on camera, but it's sitting here and I know I have to hook it up. So I'm going to loosely just get this in the first stage where I can still get my hand in behind to get to this pipe. I grabbed it. I can just get it on the connector now. There we go. So now with my vacuum pipe hooked up, I'm going to carefully try not to mangle the gasket as I'm doing it. Gasket loosely back in place. Check my PVC line is about right. Alright, so I kind of have it loosely in place now. Now I'm going to worry about lining up the gasket. I'm really no expert at this. I'm just literally going to get in here and kind of jiggle it around. Feel like it's getting in the right place. Because honestly, it's this hole and this hole back here have the alignment part. So that's the front one engaged. And that's the back engaged. I just kind of lifted the whole weight, scooted it around until I felt it kind of click over the rubber. So now I'm going to take my spacers, my rubber isolators, fit them in. I guess a word of caution, if at any point something feels like it's binding, stop. You're dealing with really expensive components. Don't forget you've got your intakes open. They're not covered by tape anymore, so just don't drop something. I think I'm going to wait for that really hard back one. Okay, as you can see, I just started the bolt in the front alignment that has the little gasket bump. So I've got that one started. That'll hold the front in alignment. Now I'm going to go for the same on the one that aligns the back gasket. And I'm going to go get my 8mm 6-point socket on a speed nut driver. So I don't want to snug these up yet tight, but I do want to pick up some of the slack in them. So, and there's definitely a tightening order that I'm going to cover with you a little bit later in this segment. Right now I'm just seeking to get the manifold kind of held in place. There we go. So I'm just going to have this one in the front, one in the middle, and the one in the back. So I just want to make sure I'm getting my gaskets properly in line. So start all my screws now. And this is where putting that daub of oil on each of the screws pays off a little bit. They go in pretty nice and smooth. To get on the back ones here, I've switched to a universal joint on a 3/8. Just to be able to make it around the cowl here. So now I have to fit the last bolt, which of course is the winch. So I'm trying to get the spacer back there first. I got an electrical plug hanging down, getting it out of the way first. It's driving me crazy. And that's the spacer in the hole. Now to do the bolt without dropping it. Fingers crossed. Alright, the bolt's in the hole. Try and get it started with my fingertips. There we go. That's about as far as I can get it at my fingertip. So now I'm going through the top scuttle hole here. I need to get extra extension on. Essentially, this is a blind fit. It's off camera, but there's nothing really you'll be able to see even if I had a camera there. I'm putting the extension through the scuttle plate hole between the wiper motors, and I'm desperately trying to find a way to get onto the top of the bolt. Blind. There we go. Off again. I can't see anything. But I can feel it, and it's taking up, and I don't want to torque it yet. So I'm just snugging it. And I'm just going to leave that there. So that's the first bank manifold loosely back in position. So I'm going to take a break because my back is killing me, and then we'll pick up again and we'll go over torquing it into place. Okay, now that my back is rested up, I'm going to torque the intake manifold bolts properly. There's a specific torque setting and a torque pattern. So I've referenced the workshop manual here. You can't see it, but I've also got a blue painter's tape here with the order I'm supposed to tighten them. There's 7 bolts, so tighten the front one first, the rearmost second, center one third, this one fourth, one you can't see into the cowl fifth, sixth, seventh. So basically you're evenly distributing the force. The torque spec is 8 to 12 Newton meters. I'm going to use 10 Newton meters on my 1/4 inch drive torque wrench. Because we're compressing that that rubber gasket, I wouldn't freeform this. I would actually use a torque wrench. You can't see it because it's off camera, but I've got my I'm hooked up to the very rearmost bolt right now. The one that's actually number 2, but because that's where I was, I'm going to torque it first. So here we go. Alright, and I'm going to get my ratchet off here and carefully extract my wrench. Okay, I needed essentially 12 inches of extension to get on that blind back connector. So now I'm going to start torquing the rest in order. So really I'm alternating 1 and 2, just out of sequence here, because that's just where I had my attachment at the time. So just smooth. Alright, that's that one. 3 is the center. That's it. So my manifold on that side is now torqued, and I'm going to move on to putting on the manifold on the other side. So stay tuned. Okay, now I'm going to fit the other side intake manifold. Again, remember the first thing you have to hook up is the vacuum pipe at the back, and again I've got mine positioned. And there's a bit more of a trick on this one, is we have to miss the thermostat housing as we're coming in here and not break it. So I found you go on the center side of it. So now I'm trying to hook up my vacuum pipe. There we go. I've got my manifold gasket loosely in place. It just got knocked out of position. So I'm going to scooch it up a bit. Technical term. And I've centered it over my first alignment hole. And I'm going to put one of my fillers in and get my first bolt started. And I have my 8mm socket on a speed driver. Just going to get this loosely connected to hold the gasket in place up front. And I think we're actually in pretty good shape on the back ones. Get the center. Of course, what I'm dreading is getting to that back bolt, which will be very, very, very difficult to reach. And it wouldn't surprise me if I have to take a different strategy and try again at this, but I will give this shot a whirl, and hopefully I can get my hand back there with the filler and everything. Alright, all that leaves is the incredibly difficult back one. Going with the long extensions. Gonna put a glove on for my right hand, just to stop it from getting scratched up by all the connectors. Okay, you can't put the bolt into the fuel injector hole. It's further back than I thought. Oh my god. Just take your time, Steve. Don't rush. Don't drop it. You have to take the glove off for the dexterity. Wow, I dropped it and it fell in the hole. Oh. Alright. Would be better off with the bolt. Because if I drop this, I'm in deep shit. So how can I make sure I don't drop this? Go. Just pinched it between my fingers like it was a pencil or a cigarette, I guess, or something. Alright, now to try and drop the torque time. Again, just a reminder, it's 10 Newton meters. And there's a pattern to it. I'm doing 1 and 2 out of order, just because I'm a wuss. My wrench was on the back one, which is supposed to be number 2. Now I'm doing number 1. And the center one is number 3. And then the second one is number 4. And the hard one at the back.
That's number 5. Or the one you right back to the third one from the front. That's number 6. And last one there is number 7. That's it.